just really excited about this week. What we're going to do, it's called the Human Person class. And so I'm going to go ahead and just kind of give you an overview of our class this week. And let's see here. Let's see, here we go. So if some of you actually want to just share before I shared this with you, I thought maybe you could share what last week was like for you. What were some of your highlights from the last class? And it can kind of just be spontaneous. You can just unmute yourself and then we know you want to talk and then we'll let you go.
I guess I can go.
Awesome.
For me, it was really neat to like go through the RC statutes and our way of life and kind of see written down, especially after like our renewal process, everything that we believe and everything that we do and why. Like in Cincinnati, we call, like when we're in ECYD and like you're on fire with ECYD, one of the consecrated calls it the heartbeat. And like that's always been super cool to like relate it to that. But I guess to see actually for the first time, like since the renewal process, everything written down, it makes everything more real. And like, yeah, this.
Awesome, thanks, Grace. Anyone else want to share one highlight from last week?
I guess from last week, my favorite part was learning about like the Reverend Christie identity and the charism and how to like live out being a missionary and like your purpose and everything and being an apostle. So I guess I really liked that and learning about that. So
very nice. Excellent. Thanks so much for sharing. Thank you. Well, this week I really want to encourage, I'm sure you did last week too, but as much participation as possible. There'll be moments where you can in the chat, I'll ask a question and you can just write it in the chat. And then we'll do breakout groups a lot. I know that you already have teams, like 4 teams is what Lisa shared. But there'll be moments that I break you into 7 teams. There'll be moments that it's like a random team so that you can get to know each other a little bit more. So we'll just start and see how it goes here. So what we're going to do this week, I want to explain to you first about the class. So here we go. It's called the Human Person class. And so this is the Instagram of a brother, a legionary brother, Anthony Freeman. And one of the quotes he says is, maybe you won't be a saint by the end of the day, but you can be one step closer. And I want to share a little bit about Brother Anthony with you as we're starting this, because he was a legionary brother that actually passed away about 3 years ago. And if you see in the top right-hand corner, it says life coach, follow Rome, Italy. So he was this very tall young man, very attractive, and he had this desire to be a saint. And what happened was very simple. At a very young age, he felt the Lord calling him. He's from Louisiana originally. That's where I'm from, by the way. And he felt the Lord calling him. So he went to start studying with the Legion at a very young age. So a year before his diaconate ordination, he was in Rome. And he did an 8-day silent retreat, which is very typical for us consecrated priests. We do that once a year. He did his 8-day silent retreat. And the last day was Easter Sunday. And his superior went to him and said, hey, Brother Anthony, we need someone to be an acolyte for the Holy Father's Mass Easter Sunday. Okay, so he's like, are you asking me? He's like, yeah, we need someone. And so he's like, of course, absolutely. So he goes to be at the mass, and they said, you know, because you're so tall, the Vatican told him, can you be the cross bearer? So Easter Sunday mass, he's coming out in front of the Holy Father carrying the cross, like there, you know, parading, if you will, with the crucifix. And it was a beautiful mass, and it was very special for him. He gets home, and everyone's asking, like, what was it like? How did you do? And he's like, well, I just put one foot in front of the other. I mean, that's all I did. I just took one next step. That night he went to sleep, and he did not wake up. He died in his sleep, and they didn't know it, but he had an enlarged heart. And it's whenever you have that, it's very typical that you can pass away in your sleep. And so no one knew that he had this problem. So he wasn't aware. He wasn't like watching it, taking a close watch on it. And whenever they found him and they started going through his things, it was so clear that the Lord had prepared him for this union with him. He had little sticky notes about, like, I don't remember the phrases, but things about heaven, you know, that like, this life is short, like live it for the Lord. So a priest gave him a stole, which they wear for confession. So he had it there around a crucifix right in front of his bed, like preparing his heart to be a deacon. And then a year later, whenever it was supposed to be his diaconate ordination, it was here in Houston, and there were maybe 7 or 8 other young men that were becoming deacons. And so he wasn't there because he passed, but his whole family came. And if you were to meet this guy, I mean, his personality, it's like, wow, like he's just a really cool, fun guy. And he started this Instagram of a life coach, and he had followers all around the world. So I want to ask Brother Anthony Freeman from heaven to be with us as we start this class, because this is what this class is all about, that I have one life and I want to live it and give it to the Lord and allow him to make it bear fruit in my life. So we'll start each class with one of his quotes, and then we'll end class with another one of his quotes. So that's what that is. So this class, we're going to just call it the human person class. And here's a description of what we're going to discuss. So could I have someone volunteer just to read it? Or just, you can unmute yourself and just start reading.
I can read.
Thanks.
This week's classes emphasize the need for self-knowledge. Only through self-knowledge can we truly grow in virtue, freedom, and holiness. Self-knowledge entails an increased awareness of how each of us is uniquely motivated, our specific talents, our natural disposition, as well as weaknesses and areas of growth that are uniquely challenging to each of us. We will talk about how the RC missionary lifestyle prepares each of you for your future permanent vacation as you grow in living out a committed lifestyle this year. The basic elements of missionary life, a Christian lifestyle, and in community dynamic of self-giving. You will be able to grow and mature daily, becoming the best version of yourself. This class is just the beginning of a lifelong journey in self-knowledge, which is one of the biggest gifts of your missionary year. When one knows oneself, you can channel your entire person, desires, talents, energy towards the true, good, and beautiful, which is God himself, finding happiness in all things.
Thank you, Isa.
You're welcome.
Okay, so let's unpack that. We're going to unpack that actually this entire class. Like each sentence is what we're going to do in one class or the other. So we're going to talk about who you are. And the point of this class is to help you grow in self-knowledge. It's like getting to know your desires, getting to know different habits you have, getting to know virtue, why maybe you feel you want to do something that's good, but at the same time you're like drawn and held back by things that aren't good for you or sins. We're going to talk about holiness. And then really, we're going to, at one moment, talk about how God has created you for a specific mission. And your missionary year is not like this added on thing to that. It's actually helping you to find your vocation and say yes to the Lord, and in a mature way. So let's just check that out. Let's see here. Let me go to the next slide. Okay. Okay, like I said, you got to be patient with me. I'm figuring out all this. Okay, here we go. Okay, so share. Okay, can you see this? So
Yes.
okay, perfect. Monday, today, we're going to talk about the goal of human life, union with God. And then we're going to talk next class about why we're put on this earth and how do we live out a life of freedom in Christ. So this is going to be like a little like a research project, if you will, that you guys will start in the next class period. Then tomorrow we're going to talk about, you're going to share what you've researched by teams. And then Tuesday, tomorrow in the second class, we're going to talk about how Mission Core Life prepares you to live out your goal in life. And then how class 5 on Wednesday, why it can be hard to embrace a Christian lifestyle. And we're going to talk about the spiritual life and discernment, just very briefly. And then Wednesday afternoon, we're going to start a life map project. So this is going to be probably the thing that you remember most about the class, to be quite honest, is how you make a map of your life, of where you started from the earliest memory you have until now. And you reflect on different moments of your life and how God has been present there. And then Thursday night, you share the life map with the different people in your team. So that's when we're going to have our smaller teams. I'll share more, obviously, as that gets closer. But do you guys have any, well, you can actually ask questions. Do you have any questions about the schedule or topics? You can also write it in the chat if you have questions.
The life map is individual, right?
Yeah. So you're individually reflecting on different periods of your life, and I kind of give you some questions to reflect on, and then you make either a drawing or some kind of creative way of displaying it, and I give you examples of that. But then in small groups, you share. It's like you share your life with the other people in your group. So it takes time and it takes a lot of listening, but every year the missionaries love this part.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so today, just in this first morning class, we're just going to have a little video discussion, a gospel reflection, and then personal reflection questions. So these were missionaries a couple of years ago. We went to New York City and we did a mission for with the Missionaries of Charity. And so that was the missionaries there in front of the Blessed Sacrament. And it was just beautiful to see them starting to click with like, I'm doing these good things and I'm presenting this holy life to people, but then clicking of like, no, this is God's inviting me into holiness. So I just remember this moment was pretty special for all of us. So what I want to do now is share with you a little video of that I think expresses this pretty clearly. Just wait a second. It's frozen. Hold on. There we go. Okay, so I want to share this video with you and then kind of get your reflections. So we might have to watch it twice, but just let me know let me know your thoughts after. I just want to have you guys share this with each other. Okay, 1 sec. Cheers.
God speaks in the silence of the heart, and we listen. And then we speak to God from the fullness of our heart. First we listen, God speaks, and then we speak and God listens. And that connection is prayer, is oneness with God. Fruit of prayer is deepening of faith. And the fruit of faith is love. And the fruit of love is service. And the fruit of service is peace. That's why we need to pray to have a clean heart. And if we have a clean heart, we can see God. And when we see God, naturally we begin to love one another. That means we see and we look, and then we give our hands to serve and our hearts to love. And that's the beginning of holiness.
Okay, I'd like for you guys to share your initial thoughts and impressions on this video. Do you need to see it again, or are you good to go?
I can share.
Okay, awesome.
I think this video like says that in order to have like an apostolic life, you have first to have like a deep connection with God and learn how to speak to him, like in order to make actions that reflect him. And all of this leads to holiness. So yeah.
Awesome, thank you. Anyone else? Like what else did you get from this?
Okay, I can go.
Mm-hmm.
Lately, these days, I've been going around the importance of silence.
Mm-hmm.
And Mother Teresa has this great phrase, which I love, which says that the fruit of that silence, it's prayer. And when I saw this video, the first thing that came into my mind was like, wow, silence is key to our spiritual life. And sometimes there is noise in silence. Let me explain it. We can be completely quiet, but we have a lot in mind. We have a lot of distractors. But to truly have an encounter with Christ, silence must be, well, silence, it's key to it. So that's what calls the most for me.
Excellent, thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, I agree with what you guys shared. It's like first starts with silence and listening. And if I want to do anything good for God or others, like it has to start from that like prayerful heart. And prayer is just listening to God. So I love the simplicity about that way of explaining what it means, what you're doing all year to be a missionary. It just starts with that simple contemplation, simple silence. You know, someone told me about this, maybe I'm sure you all know about her. Her name is Kylie Jenner, and that she's one of the youngest millionaires. Is that right? Or billionaires? I don't even know. Self-made millionaire. And I was thinking when they would start telling me her story and how she's like the youngest self-made millionaire, and I was like, honestly, I wonder who's happier. You know, like if you have a Mother Teresa that's poor as poor could be, and she freely chose that, and she's helping other poor. And then you have this young woman, or, you know, whatever, that is there with all the money, you know, that she could ever want. Like, let me just ask you, who do you think is actually happier? Who do you think? Like, honestly, I'm not just trying to like set you up. Like, who do you think?
Mother Teresa, of course.
But why?
Because money doesn't buy happiness.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And the less you need to be happy, I think it's when you are the happiest.
So guys, like we know this, right? Like all of us can answer, boom, Mother Teresa, because like money doesn't, whatever, like there's so much more to happiness. But in our hearts, this week is a week to evangelize our hearts. That sometimes I can still be grasping for things that I know actually don't make me happy, but my heart's like, I want it anyways. Like, I just want to see if it does, right? So that's what we're asking God for. Like, God, give me the grace of transformation. Help me to understand with my mind, but also with my heart, that choosing you is the best thing. Choosing you is actually going to make me happy. Choosing you is going to make my life fruitful. So fruitful, like a fulfilled life. Because the world tells you that if you choose God, you're going to be bored. You're going to be alone. You're going to be poor without what you need. You're going to it's not going to go well for you, right? So we need to evangelize our hearts this week and understand that freedom, the true freedom that we're looking for, actually comes when we give our lives, when we lay down our lives. That's the difference between there's many differences actually, but between Kylie Jenner and Mother Teresa. The one I want to highlight is that Mother Teresa is laying her life down, and she has found freedom by laying her life down. And you have this other girl that's trying to find freedom by grasping at these material things that go in a minute, in a second's notice, it's gone, right? We have the COVID virus, boom, stock has changed, oil prices, they're gone. Like, things change overnight. And if I'm putting my happiness in that, I'm not free. I'm not free. It's contingent. My freedom is contingent upon this little thing, right? So God blows our minds of what freedom is. So what we're going to do, if you're up for this, tell me if you're up for this. I'd like to mix you guys up just for like maybe 10 minutes, and we'll do a reflection. We're going to do a gospel reflection on the Good Samaritan. Now, why are we doing this reflection? I want you to just reflect on who, you can write this down. This is going to be your questions, because once you're broken up, I won't be able to send this to you, or at least if I don't know how to do it. So go ahead and write down, who is the freest? Who's the freest person in this scenario? And why? Okay. Freest person in this scenario. So you're only going to have 5 minutes, because this is one question. It's not that you're going to be having an exegesis, like a whole study on scripture. Okay. So are you guys cool with, give me a thumbs up if you're cool with it, like just being in a totally different random group, and I'm going to let Zoom pick your group? Yes. Or if you're like, okay, cool. So give me a second to just do this. And again, you'll just have like 5 minutes. So let's break you into. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start the group. And the gospel passage is Luke 10:25. Luke 10:25, the Good Samaritan. And who is the freest person in the scripture passage, and why?